Thank you everyone so much for joining us. We're excited to kick off this training series. I'm Erin Schoenberg and I'm with the Center for Rural Affairs. And then we have Ben, do you want to wave, from Nebraska Extension, and Skylar, wave from Skylar, from Buy Fresh, Buy Local. And then tomorrow night, Margaret, also from Buy Fresh, Buy Local, will be joining us. So the three of our organizations have teamed up to be able to offer some opportunities for rural farmers market across the state of Nebraska. And why we decided to kind of break these up into different regions of the state. So this one tonight is kind of the Beatrice, Southeast Nebraska region, is for that networking. And so some of you may know each other either from being at the same market or at neighboring markets. And so we're hoping that can add a little bit to the conversation. Tonight we'll be talking about marketing in the first half of the evening. The second half will be focused on the vendor recruitment and retention. And we hope that this is really helpful both for managers and for vendors. And we know there are both already on this call. And we also know there's a lot of people who do both jobs at the same time.
Alrighty, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So as Erin said, my name is Ben Mcshane-Jewell. I'm with the University of Nebraska Extension Department. And I am part of our relatively new initiative at Extension known as the Regional Food Systems Initiative. And so we started a couple years ago kind of focusing on smaller scale, local and regional production and distribution systems around the state of Nebraska, really trying to provide some of what Extension does to farmers across the state, or for farmers across the state, to our more kind of direct-to-consumer, specialty crop producers like yourselves. So really happy to be here. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm so glad to see you all, and I hope that this is really helpful for you. We're going to start with some marketing ideas and concepts just to kind of get started. So, starting with, why marketing? Why is marketing important at all? So you all attend farmers markets on a weekly basis. You are out there, customers are coming. So why would you even need to think more about marketing beyond that? So marketing is really about fulfilling a need for customers. And in order to do that, you have to understand who your customers are, what they want, what they're looking for, who else is out there trying to fulfill those needs as well, who your competition might be, and what options you have for delivering your product. So really, marketing is about meeting a customer need. It's about building relationships with both your current and prospective customers who will hopefully start showing up your market down the road. And it's also really about telling your story of who you are, who your business is, and what you represent and what your values are as a business. And ultimately, hopefully, right, marketing is a tool to help you generate some sales, to generate some profit. So you've created something, your products, that are very valuable, incredibly valuable to the people who need them, who want them, or are searching for them. And marketing is kind of your tools to translate that perceived customer value into sales. So we know that there's a lot of strong consumer preference for wholesome, healthy food for families. We also know that when it comes to local foods, customers are often looking for more than just the product themselves. They're really wanting the story behind that product and behind those people that really did the hard work to get those products to market. So if your marketing doesn't translate to immediate sales right now, it will also hopefully translate to leads for future customers for future sales. So marketing might be generating sales today for this week's market. It might also be connecting with customers, telling your story so that next week they come to your market and start to buy your products. So marketing is how you tell your story to potential customers to help you stand out in a very crowded and competitive marketplace. We know that in our local foods world, if you go to some of the markets in the Lincoln and Omaha area, for example, and this might be true in your markets as well, in Lincoln and Omaha, there's often dozens of vendors selling a very similar array of products, similar pricing. So how do you distinguish yourself in that competitive landscape where other people might be able to offer similar products to the same customers? So it's how you tell your story to potential customers to help you stand out. It helps customers connect with you, to trust that your products are as good as you say they are, and it helps you build long-term relationships with those customers so that they return to your market booth over and over again. So it's all about building relationships, all about telling your story. It's all about trying to stand out and distinguish yourself in the marketplace. So what do we mean when we talk about marketing? What does it actually include? If you've done any sort of digging around on the internet about finding some definitions of marketing, there are millions of them. There's a really overwhelming number of definitions out there for what marketing is, and it can be difficult sometimes to really kind of identify what's useful. So we came up with a very kind of simple breakdown here, just a few categories to kind of help you make good decisions about how to market your business. It's pretty simple. I hope this will be useful for you. And we'll talk about each one of these just a little bit here tonight. So obviously when you start, you have to have a product, right? So if you have a product that does not fulfill a customer need, you're going to struggle to make any sales. So whatever product you're trying to sell, you're trying to get out into the marketplace, has to match something that the customers are looking for. So if everyone at your market is selling the exact same varieties of tomatoes, for example, it's going to be very difficult to distinguish yours from others. But you might find a way that there's a different variety, a different type of tomato that certain people are looking for that no one else is selling. You're fulfilling that need of finding that tomato for those customers. Let's see. When you have a product, your next decision-making around marketing is where are you going to deliver that product to customers? How are you going to match up your product with the customers that are looking for it? How are you going to get it from your farm field into the hands of your potential customers? In the local foods worlds, we often distinguish between direct-to-consumer marketing, which you all are very familiar with. This is any sort of farmer's market, CSA, farm stand, any exchange where you, the producer, are selling product directly to the end user, to the end customer who's going to eat that food and take it home. Distinguish between that type of marketing versus intermediated marketing, which would be any sort of marketing where you're selling it to a buyer, to a wholesaler, say a grocery store, a restaurant, and then they in turn are taking that product and selling it to the end user. So direct to consumer versus intermediated marketing. So those are kind of the two main distinctions that we make. So you've got a product, you've got a place to sell it, figured out. The next really kind of critical step in the marketing process is to figure out what are you going to charge for your product. So obviously your business does not last very long if you're selling products for less than it costs you to actually produce that product. So it's really important to have a good grasp of what your costs are for each product that you sell. We're not going to go into a lot of detail about this tonight, but if you're not already tracking your costs of production and figuring out your price based on that, we do have some resources that we'd be happy to share with anyone interested. Feel free to contact us. We'll send them out after the training in the next couple of days. But enterprise budgeting is one common method used to track costs and determine a break-even price. So if you are figuring, if you're selling, say, tomatoes and peppers and garlic and onion, you want to make sure you're tracking very closely the cost for each one of those items that it costs you to produce, and then setting prices accordingly. Of course, it's also useful to walk around the markets that you're going to be selling at, check out what others are selling their stuff for, talk to your customers. They are great sources of information. You can always kind of pay attention to their behaviors. What are they buying? What prices are they responding to? And which ones are they not? So lots of different ways to kind of figure out your pricing, but should always start with your cost of production as you start to think about what to charge for your products. So you got a product, you know where you're selling it, you know what you're going to charge for it. Then comes all the fun part of the promotion of the actual product. So this is where the marketing part that most people think about is comes to bear. So the way that you convey your value to your product is through this kind of promotional outlets, everything from radio, newspaper, and TV ads, social media flyers, signage at the markets, whatever sort of methods you use. You want them to be consistent in a way that kind of pops out to customers and simplifies for them some answers to some very basic questions about what is the value of this product? Is it going to meet that need that they're looking to satisfy? And so that kind of consistent packaging of your promotion is what we know as brand or branding. So we're going to dig into that a little bit more here in just a second. But those four things pretty simple breakdown, but obviously you can get a lot of complexity with each one of those as you go through and get a little more sophisticated with each one. But that's just kind of a very simple breakdown of the components of marketing. Before we go into a little more depth about brand identification specifically, I just wanted to put a little plug in here to beyond just, finding the customer need is really important, but I think it's also very important just to identify for yourself, what are you passionate about as a producer, as a business person? Are you really excited about engaging with customers at the market, telling your story, kind of having that back and forth and really communicating directly with customers? Then you're probably in the right space, selling at the farmer's market, doing the direct consumer thing. If you're less excited about that, you didn't really get into this because you love that sort of back and forth with the customer, you'd rather be out in the fields, getting your hands dirty, you might want to think about the more intermediated marketing strategies. And the reason that that's important, of course, is your production system, your production approach is going to change pretty dramatically based on which of those you choose. If you're going to be at the farmer's market, as you know, customers want to see a diverse array of products on your stand. They want to see some different colors and they want it to look very full and abundant. Whereas if you're kind of going in the more intermediated marketing route, you might specialize in 2 or 3 or 4 different things that you can grow in larger quantities. So important to, before you get too far down the line, that you're also thinking about what are you really motivated by and what gets you up in the morning to get out and doing your job. So your brand is often the kind of the customer's first impression of your market or your farm. It's the public facing part of your overall marketing plan. So how customers perceive you, your brand, can increase awareness, it attracts new customers, it could build trust and loyalty that leads to repeat customers coming back to your stand, your market. And it contains everything from an eye-catching logo to consistent colors, several elements to consider that we'll go into here in just a minute. And just give you brands can feel very vague at first if you're trying to develop it, but it'll become more specific as you start kind of identifying what you want, what your customers react to and respond to, and how they respond to your market. So before we kind of go into those components of what makes up an effective brand, I want to take a look at a couple of examples and have you, if you could respond in the chat or if you feel comfortable unmuting and kind of responding to this, we're just going to take a look at a couple different examples of farmers market kind of branding approaches and just kind of get some sense, some feedback from everybody from what you're seeing there. So this first one might be one that several of you are familiar with. I think this is a vendor from the Beatrice area, if I'm not mistaken. So this is Davis Family Sugar Shack. I just want to take a look at this first photo of a market booth and think about what this display says to you. What comes to mind when you see this display? What do you know about this product or business just by looking at the display? And then maybe type in the chat if you want to, or unmute and tell us one thing that kind of really jumped out at you. What do you know about this business and this product?
I guess one thing is you immediately know what it is they're selling.
Yep. Yeah, good. It's very obvious what product you're getting into. You're not going to find tomatoes at this stand. Very clear.
Pancakes. Pancakes.
Pancakes come to mind, sure. Yeah, warm stack of pancakes with some delicious maple syrup. Absolutely.
I like seeing on their banner where they're from because that's something I pay attention to when I shop at markets.
Good. Yeah, so you know that they're coming from Wisconsin, so there's some very clear transparency about where they're getting their product from or who you're buying from. Great, thank you.
And that they're family owned and have a internet presence as well.
Family owned, yeah, that's great.
That's
families,
funny.
right?
That tiny little .com says so much.
It does, doesn't it?
I can still get you when you're not here.
That's right. Yeah, the family name is right in the name of the business. So it's a small, probably family-owned business. They're from Wisconsin. We know what their website address is without it being very obtrusive. It just kind of snuck right in there. We're thinking about pancakes. We're thinking about delicious maple syrup. What else stands out to anybody else?
It's a very inviting looking booth with the scene of the snow and the trees and the buckets hanging on the trees. It's inviting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that really jumps out at me. I want to go, even if I don't buy anything, I want to go up and get closer to that booth because it's very inviting. I feel very comfortable. It's out in the woods. It's a snowy day. I want some warm maple syrup on my pancakes. I love that. I think it looks great. The colors are consistent from the tablecloth up to the top. Same colors, same sort of fonts. Everything looks very consistent and it's just very attractive to the eye.
It's also clean and neat and well organized.
Very well organized, very simple. There's not a lot going on. It's just one image and it looks great. I agree with that. All right, good. Let's take a look at the next one here. Same kind of thing. Let's see if I can get this to work. Here's another one. This is Grow with the Flow, aquaponics in the Lincoln area. It's a little bit harder to see, but just let's do the same kind of thing. What do you see here? What jumps out at you?
Flowers.
Flowers. Yep, they're obviously selling flowers. There's no mistaking that. What else?
I noticed the levels that they have things placed at. It's not all just on the table, it's everywhere.
Great. Yeah, lots of use of levels and space, vertical space in their displays. And I think Skylar's going to talk about some of that kind of stuff a little bit later on too.
From a market management standpoint, having a picture with the person wearing a mask seems to be very important for a lot of our customers. You know, just that peace of mind that is being taken seriously.
Great point.
Yeah, you can even see his hand sanitizer pump, I think, right by his little, I'm going to call it a podium.
Yeah. And because anytime we've used pictures from past years, this year, it's almost always we get a comment, where's the guy's mask? Where's her mask? You know, that type of thing.
It's interesting what you gotta think about these days.
I'm impressed with the tent. That's got their sign right on the top of the tent and on the side. I think that's pretty sweet. Probably pretty expensive, but pretty sweet.
Yeah, a little pricey probably on the design there, but I also like, oops, sorry about that. It's also got their social media names right there. Same as kind of the last one, it kind of sneaks it right in there. So you know it's at GWTF Aquaponics. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram. You know, the other thing that kind of stands out to me about this image here is very consistent from the tent to the van. Same color, same logo, same design, but then they also have the handwritten signs, which I really like. I think that's a nice touch. You got the green tablecloths that look like the same kind of green in their other marketing stuff, but they mixed it up a little bit and did some handwritten signs that's even those kind of matched me, and they kind of fit with the overall marketing approach of the rest of the stuff. So one more here, let's do this one, last one here. This is Lost Lake Farms. I believe they're out of Iowa. A little bit harder to see. I know you probably can't see everything that's in this picture, but just general impressions of what kind of stands out to you here.
It looks like he's really sharing his story. I mean, he's got the family pictures there. The menus are, you know, out.
Yeah, great. Family story. You see some pictures of this guy with his kids, I believe, down here. He's got him and his kids with his cows that are making this delicious cheese product that he's selling. What else? Anything else stand out to folks?
Tablecloth is a little busy for me.
Good point.
I did not know he was selling cheese. I thought he was selling pictures or cards or something.
It's a little hard to see in the picture. Up there in the front is a sample of cheese there. You may not be able to see it from where you're.
Is that his sign behind him?
It is. So I think if you were there in person, you would have picked up on that, but maybe not in the photo. So the only other reason I bring this one up is it's just kind of in distinction to the last couple that were very highly produced. You probably had a graphic designer creating banners and logos. This guy's taken a much more simple approach, which can be just as effective. He's got pictures of his kids with the cows, and it tells that story of who they are and what they do. You know, nothing real fancy here. He's got some printed out pictures of the different types of cheeses on a cork board over here, some samples of cheese. You know, I think it kind of has the similar effect. You don't have to be an expert graphic designer and create fancy, expensive banners. You can do this by hand and have a similar effect. But the effect is that you're telling the story of your business and you're attracting people to come in and learn more about that story that you can tell effectively in person. So appreciate those comments. Thank you so much.
And he looks friendly.
He looks friendly.
That's
Yes.
huge. I mean, not that we really got to see the other vendors from those examples, but he just, like, the body language and the smile that's marketing, right there too.
Absolutely. Great
And
point.
Can I give some feedback there?
Please.
On all the great things he's got going on, I would say that where it says the cheese, Curtis, I would just recommend that he put that sign in the front of his table so it can be seen versus behind him.
Great point. Move that sign up to the front so people can see that right off the bat. That's a great point. Yep, absolutely. He's got that. You can see it's a little hard to see, but on his shirt, he's got the same design as the sign. So he does have some consistent marketing kind of branding going there too. But yeah, rearrange the banner a little bit, he'd be even stronger. All right, so moving on here. So getting to the brand. So those are kind of examples of branding. So different farmers market displays that are kind of giving a picture of the brand of those different businesses. So your brand is often the customer's first impression of your market or farm. It's the public facing part of your overall marketing plan, and it's kind of how customers perceive your brand that can increase awareness of your business, of your market. It can attract new customers, build that trust and loyalty that leads to customers coming back and week after week. So it can be everything from an eye-catching logo to consistent colors, several elements that we're going to consider here real quick about brand, and we won't go into a ton of depth about each of these, but here they are. So first one is just kind of personality. So think of your brand as kind of the personality of your farmer's market or your farm stand, your business. What sets you apart from other markets? What are your values, your mission? How do your products, programs, and events fit into that customer's life that's coming in? What words and feelings do you want vendors, customers, and the community to associate with your market? So your brand is kind of the personality of the market itself. Consider the voice of your brand, of your market. So set some guidelines for the tone and word choices that you use. How do you talk about your market? How do you sound? How do you want to sound? Are you down to earth, fun, silly, polished? By identifying ways that you want to come across, you can set some guidelines for the tone and words you choose in social media posts. This can work for if you're doing interviews with local news stations or in face-to-face interactions at the market. And we talked a little bit about in those examples about different colors. Colors are really powerful. They inspire feelings, they set moods. The colors you use in your branding will affect the overall look and feel of your market. So take a little bit of time. It doesn't hurt to take a little time to research different colors and how it relates to the rest of your brand image or to the rest of the vendors and programs and events. So for example, if your market takes place in a park, you might want to think about some green colors or some green shades to kind of reflect that outdoor park feel. Or if you're in a community that uses blue in its branding, you might want to incorporate some similar shades of blue into your color scheme. So you don't need a ton of color choices, pick 2 or 3, and you can create additional variation by just kind of adjusting the different hues of those colors. Typeface, so you always want to choose something that's easy to read, fonts that match that personality. Again, there should be consistency across all of these different elements of the brand. Little details matter. Is it easy to read? Does it reflect the personality? What emotions does it evoke? Tagline. The tagline is just a short description of the market that you can use in your marketing platforms. So good idea just to brainstorm some ideas about a tagline. So maybe talk to some loyal customers or vendors, ask them to give you a list of 2 or 3 or 4 words that for them represent the market that you're at, that you're promoting. Come up with a very short phrase that kind of represents the personality of your market and then use it consistently. In your social media, on your website, in your newsletters, press releases, whatever it might be, make sure it's there so people can really recognize that and know that they're getting something consistent. So again, consistency, branding is all about being consistent. You want to always stay on brand, make sure that all these different elements of your brand align, that they're connected to each other and that they flow easily. So you want to reinforce that brand through all the words and visuals that you use in your marketing. All right, and then quickly here, I'm just going to go over some really kind of basic do's and don'ts of marketing that are pretty general before we kind of switch gears and Skylar is going to dig into a little bit more tangible, practical, hands-on kind of things. So do's and don'ts of marketing. So first one, making a marketing calendar and checklist. And I think Skylar is going to talk about this a little bit more in a little bit. Making a plan for the year of what you want to promote and when you need to promote it. You might want to promote a special event 4 to 5 weeks before it happens. Or there might be things you want to promote each and every week throughout the farm season or the market season. Doesn't have to be really complex. Again, this is one of those things where if you search online, for example, marketing calendars, you could find an array of complexities, but it doesn't have to be super complicated. Find something that works for you. It can just be an Excel spreadsheet or whatever sort of format you're comfortable with. Next one, local media are your friends. Local media, really connect with them before the season starts. If you haven't already, I'm sure many of you have done this. Send out press releases, reach out about on-air interviews for radio stations locally. A lot of times radio stations in local communities are really looking for content. They would be excited to promote your farmers market if you contacted them. They'll probably let you come on air and talk live if you're into doing that. Some newspapers are open for kind of weekly or monthly guest pieces in the newspaper. You could write about updates in the market for that particular week. Really see who's out there in your local kind of media world and get connected with them as soon as you can. You want to make sure, next one is just to don't put all your marketing eggs in one basket. So I think a lot of times there's maybe a tendency to focus on social media too much or on local newspaper too much. You really want to diversify. Find lots of different outlets. Make sure you're reaching a diverse audience who will be potentially coming to your market. Lots of different ways to do that. Again, just kind of reaching out to different things, different opportunities to get the word out there about your market. So lots of communities will have a calendar for their local community. You know, get your farmers market calendar out there on any other market calendar that's out there. It might be a local chamber of commerce, might be on the TV station or the radio station might have a kind of online calendar that you can put your events out there. So make sure you're reaching broadly across different opportunities there. And then lastly, not to criticize, but some people call this old-fashioned marketing. Don't underestimate the old-fashioned marketing. You know, again, social media is great and it has its place, and Skylar's going to give you some good information about how to do that effectively for farmers market here in just a minute. But getting flyers out door to door, putting them up in your grocery store, putting a big sign up on the highway next to your farmers market, these can have really big impacts and should be part of your overall marketing approach. So yeah, I think that's it for me. I'm going to pass it off to Skylar, who's going to talk a little bit more in depth. Skylar.
Hello, everyone. I am Skylar with Buy Fresh Buy Local Nebraska. We are at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We're an extension program. I'll get more about me later, and I wanted just to start my presentation with probably like what everyone's like, oh, I don't want to talk about metrics or data or any of this stuff. But when we're really thinking about, you know, what are we going to be putting our time towards and maybe money towards as far as branding and marketing and social media posts, boosting posts, you know, trying to connect with other organizations in our community. It's really important that we think about how we can measure some of these impacts, because as market managers and farmers, I know that your time and financial resources are limited. And so I just wanted to throw this up at the beginning. I'm not going to get too in depth. Buy Fresh Buy Local has done a lot of assisting markets track some of these things as far as like customer counts, sales, customer surveys. That photo is me with my, I don't know if he was 7-month-old son last year, doing DOT surveys, which is a way to get feedback from customers about the market. You can ask whatever question you want. Customers get a DOT. It's a way for them to feel invested and also to get some feedback from your customers that doesn't seem as invasive as like calling them on the phone or having a, you know, transcribe exactly what they say. So I know a lot of markets don't, you know, their vendors don't report sales or anything like that. But if you are thinking about, you know, partnering with other organizations or, you know, showing your impact as a market, it sometimes is worth exploring the idea of collecting some data whatever way that makes sense. Sometimes it's just a journal, like customer counts were low, medium, high, and the weather was sunny or cloudy. I have the disclaimer at the bottom that you really have to note, you know, is it Mother's Day or Father's Day? Is there a holiday? Is it rainy? Because that will influence your data. So I just wanted to plug that for the beginning. It's boring. We can go to the next slide and people can talk to me later. Because really what we're here is, you know, how can we increase sales and attendance at our market? So a lot what I'm going to be sharing with today is from this document called the Farmers Market Living Lab. I think we'll provide a resource to people, but it was a farmers market in Delaware that the town has 3,000 people, but it's a highly tourist location. And they did like little experiments to see what would help increase sales for vendors and what wouldn't. And so essentially they did all those metrics on that previous slide to determine that. So I have a slide for vendors and then we'll get to market managers. But essentially people buy more, people are shopping with their eyes. And so they want to see color, they want to see the tiered product displays. With COVID, it's important that people can point to what they want instead of, because they're not necessarily able to grab. That's not necessarily recommended right now. And so signs, tablecloths, everything we kind of talked about is really important when we think that people shop with their eyes. And so, you know, for meat vendors, or if you have things in coolers, this is where I'll show some examples where we can get creative to increase sales once we know that people are shopping with their eyes. The second takeaway from this experiment was that if you bring more, you sell more. And so people want to buy from booths that feel full and bountiful. And so I know it's kind of like a give and take. You don't want to like increase what you bring so much. It's a little risky for a farmer that you have so much left over, but you want to find that sweet spot of if it looks more full, then people will buy more of what I am selling. The number 3 is people buy what they know what to do with. So like with the maple syrup example, people immediately thought of pancakes. They go, I know what to do with maple syrup. And so if you're familiar like kohlrabi or type of condiment, you know, you have like a hot sauce even. If you tell them, oh, just put some hot sauce, you know, in with your chicken wings, or you have a recipe card, or like that vendor with the cheese, you have photos that you can then bring up, you know, what they can do with each of these items. People are more likely to buy something that they're familiar with. And so it might be your role to help them, you know, picture what they can do with that product. And this can be through photos again. The recipe cards can be effective, especially if you use them as and a point for engagement. As I think Erin pointed out earlier, everyone wants like a friendly, you know, when you go buy something from a booth, you want someone that's like smiling and, you know, is open to, their body language is open to talking more to you. And that goes to the 4th point, that they found that people really do want to know their farmer. You know, people are, once they know your name, they're more likely to buy from you. If they like you, they're more likely to buy from you. So all this kind of goes together, and we'll be talking about some examples. So I guess one common thread I see in all of this is that signs are really important. So Ben, if you want to show the next slide. And I think one thing to keep in mind is that like there's a spectrum here. Like you see that grow with the flow, like huge banner. That's probably like 4.0 for that farm. They are, you know, farms are on an iteration. And so we can really, you can really just print something and laminate it at, you know, a local Walgreens or something, and you don't need to go really high end fast. So what are some things I guess you see in any of these photos that you like as far as signage goes? For me, like you can actually see any product, right, for this booth. And so this person is really making a big attempt to show like you can cook the, you know, the bratwurst on the side, and they have the photos up. And so this, based on that experiment, people sold out of their product. And of course, these are sold out of their product an hour earlier if they had signs. And so that really helped people see, you know, of course, the EMC says pasture-raised chicken, but without the images, it really has an effect on your sales. And then the garlic side is, you know, if you have 3 different varieties of garlic, having some little informational sheets about them on a nice tablecloth can help feel more engaged. Yeah.
I noticed so the garlic signs, I like how okay, there's so much information on that little sign. And of course, from a distance, a customer could never read that, but that's not the point. Like, the point is, if you saw the beautiful display of garlic and you came closer, then it's a chance to get a little more intimate with that description. And so it's no big deal that the text is small, because it's kind of intended for someone who's already walked over versus someone walking by. I really like that.
Yes. So we can go to the next slide to just give some takeaways for market managers. So from the same experiment, they found that hosting special events really increase customer count and sales at the market. Of course, special events come with like the side effect of they're labor intensive and they take a lot of community organizing. And so I understand that's not always only feasible. I have some examples up of how the Hastings downtown market, they have 3 different sponsors, or is it 4? Sorry, I can't actually. They have many different sponsors that help, make the market be able to have special events. So the Hastings Art Council organizes their music for them and gives an honorarium to the musicians. So these kind of partnerships are a way to, increase engagement with the community and, value your time, conserve your time, I guess is what I mean, and also have a big impact on the market. The second thing they came up with is a secret word raffle to test what advertising is most productive. Is it newspaper? Is it social media? So each of these, you would have a raffle that day, and each of these, if you knew the secret word, you would put it down and you get 2 entries into the raffle. And each advertisement outlet would have different secret words. So it's a little complicated. I'd be happy to give like more insight. These are just like little ideas on how you could see what works for your market if you do have a little bit of a budget. Number 3 is partner with organizations. So that is Buy Fresh by local partners with our market farmers market members to host events when that was more popular, obviously. And so we are happy to continue doing that. But there's also one idea that I saw was Health Day at the market as a special event where the hospital came down and did blood pressure. And the hospital also donated some money so that you could have samples or do something that helped, they help advertise that event, I guess. Whenever you partner with an organization, they then might have funding to promote that. And the last one is just to increase day of market signs. And what that means is the day of your market, increase signs around the town that, either it's we can go to the next slide, I guess, Ben, because that kind of gets into there. Whether it's like a hanging banner, if you're able to have like a more permanent sign that you don't have to put up every week, whether it's an A-frame sidewalk sign, like in the bottom left, which is, and I put that together. The benefit of the A-frame on the left is that you could switch out the poster. It wouldn't have to be static and always stay there. And the posters can run $5 to $10 for printing. And then we also, just one fun sign that maybe you could partner with if you have an art community, like the bottom right corner for Omaha Farmers Market, where there's a broccoli that you put your head in and take a photo. Some goofy thing like that. So we can go to the next slide because we're running up against time, so I don't want to. But I want to get people thinking that market managers and vendors are really in this together. When you market your farm, really try to also promote the farmers market you're going to, because it will benefit your sales if they are more aware of that market and that market's brand and mission as they are if they know about your farm, because they might be coming to market and they can get tomatoes from you, but then they can also get art and they can also get pork, and that makes it just more of a community event and they can get more things done. So that means vendors really helping with these special events, whether it's donating food. So, and then there's signs up during the chef demos that brings people to your stand. There's music, art, sweet corn days. I was just throwing out lots of different ideas. Market scavenger hunts is another way market managers and vendors can work together. Giveaway baskets where you promote your market and maybe have a raffle on Facebook, or raffle is not quite the right word. I'm trying to give just a giveaway where people like, friend, and share a post. So we can go to the next slide. That's just to get us thinking. So
on that last slide,
yeah.
Which ones of those do you recommend doing during COVID? I mean, normally we've been staying away from children's activities and that kind of thing. Are there some that are particularly suited to this time?
I still think giveaway baskets is something that can happen, and that is just a way to maybe get more people following your Facebook account or to get to your website. Like the giveaway basket would be where the farmer's market, or even, I mean, it could be the vendor, like sets it up that if you like this post, share this post, and comment on it, you will be entered into the raffle to win the basket. And so that's like a social media way to do that. And then there's free online software that will, like, you can enter, they'll choose the winner depending on how many people participate. Or the like low tech way for that is like you just choose a number between 1 and 20 and that person wins. I do think people are still like I don't know about in the Beatrice area, but like sweet corn days is just like, you're just making an event and saying, we have a lot of sweet corn. It's not like it's just come and buy from the market. And there's not much added other than that. I mean, if it wasn't COVID, you could have a lot more like stickers of corn or an artist drawing corn on kids' faces. But with COVID, you could still promote some of these seasonal items and make them events on your Facebook page to get people thinking, oh, there's something happening here today. And I guess for working together, the first one I kind of glanced over was just sharing social media posts. If your market posts something, share it on your thread. As the market managers, if you see something on someone else's, on a vendor's thread, share it on your market page.
Is it legal now to ask people to share for a giveaway or whatever on Facebook? I don't think that used to be technically legal.
Can you share, can you rephrase or say that again? You mean like say something's free?
No, I think like, I don't know, like and share this post or something. I don't think that used to be legal by Facebook rules. Maybe it is now. I guess I'm not up to date on that.
Yeah, I guess I would. When I was the assistant market manager at the Sunday Farmers Market in Lincoln, which was 2 years ago, like we were still doing that, but maybe I'll write that down and double check.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up. That is something that could be checked on, and someone out there knows for sure. I was going to add on that last slide, you don't need to go back, but music too. I have noticed there are some folks still doing that because especially if it's just a single musician, but even if it's like a three-piece type of thing, they can be set apart from any other interaction with people. And that does kind of add to the environment. But of course, it's this fine line of right now, we don't want the markets to be too social. We want people to shop. But you do still want to have that environment that you don't lose too much of, just because of the times. But.
Great. So I just threw together kind of a list of what are ways to increase engagement on Facebook. And I'm not going to actually really go through these. We're going to give these slides to you because we're running out of time, and I want to make sure there's time for questions and a stretch break before our next one. Yeah, so we'll go through the next one. I think the biggest thing, what I wanted to share about social media was just that although social media is fast and easy, they also filter who gets to see your posts. And so that's why the last slide, when we're talking about engagement and we're talking about making certain posts, is that, Facebook owns the audience there, and for more people to see your posts, they are asking you to boost it and pay money. And so even if you write a really good post, it's still like out of your hands to a certain degree on the algorithm and how that changes. And so a secondary step in your marketing, like long-term plan, could be an email list where people subscribe and you send them emails. That is a direct marketing way that lets you get right into someone's email box, and they've consented to being marketed by you because they say, hey, I want to learn more about this farm and their products. So just a disclaimer on that. And if people are looking for social media information on that last slide, I'd love to talk more after the presentation. So I think we can go to the next slide. I just love this post as an engaging example from the village. This is Omaha, but it says I think you could have a whole series in the summer about what am I? And you show okra or, you know, zucchini bread or something that's at your market. And this one had kind of a giveaway. Like if you tell us your favorite way to prepare it, you could win $10. So these are just kind of get the creative juices flowing on what either the market Facebook page could do or individual markets or individual farmers could do. So I like that one as an example. So we can go to the next slide. Yeah, this is getting kind of dense for the time. So I think this whole point was just about what you can do before market, just really be thinking about you can do stuff before market and during market. Next slide, Ben, you covered a lot, so you're not missing out. This point is just like the best marketing at the market is you. Like people want to connect with you. So even wear a name tag. That is like a basic way for people to know your name. And then again, if we know that people shop with their eyes, they buy from people they know and like, then the name tag with a smile or like a fun apron with chilies on it, like that just says, hey, come talk with me. And so these are just kind of reiterating, you know, 3 low-cost ways to really attract more customers. And even the photo on the right is just like, let's say you don't want to talk a lot. You could put up a profile, you can't see that very well, just a profile of your farm on the outside of your tent and tape it up there so people could know where you're at, what you like to grow, your tagline, that kind of stuff. So we can go to the next one. So how do you keep in mind all these things you want to do for your marketing, whether it be, especially on social media, because I'm guessing a lot of people might use Facebook. So this is the Buy Fresh, Buy Local Facebook schedule to show that it doesn't have to be super fancy or incredibly detailed. We just have an Excel sheet with the days of the week and then which members we're featuring and what content we're featuring. So from that social media page, it's really good to post 4 to 7 days out of the week, once a day is kind of what's being recommended. And so this is just an example of something easy you can do at the beginning of the season. You can even write the posts before you put and schedule them so you'll have more time for all the other busy things you do in August. So yeah, next slide. So one thing I guess I want people to think about is what's one thing you maybe want to try even this year? Is it better signage? Is it the name tag? Is it maybe doing posts on Facebook where you tag the farmers market or other vendors to, create more engagement? Loyalty cards, a sign that says what you sell, instead of your name of your farm, maybe the biggest sign is that you have cheese or you have okra or something like that. So this is just to get people thinking on what you might want to do. I think then that's the next 2 we can go quick through. Sorry, my time is very long. So the last thing I want to point out is to market managers. If you are interested in joining a group where you can bounce ideas off of, ask questions, get feedback, there is a private Facebook group that you can join. And it's only for market managers. So it's a safe space to kind of, share what's going on in your world and not feel so alone as you do the good work of promoting local farms. And we can go to the last slide, second to last slide, which if you're interested in joining our network, we do make posters for farmers markets so they can use our already designed image to promote the market. We do an online food guide, paper food guide, placards for how much things cost at your booth. You can learn more at localnebraska.org. And now we'll really be at the last slide, which means time for questions. And yeah, if anyone has questions.
So I have a question on marketing and branding. I've been throwing around the idea of, instead of calling it the Plattsmouth Farmers Market, just dropping the word farmers out of it and calling it market, and then branding it below with just a slogan or whatnot, because we seem to get a good amount of makers, crafters, along with produce vendors. And I've heard multiple comments from just different customers that a lot more things here than just veggies.
Yeah.
What is anybody's thoughts on that? And has anyone else like considered that marketing or branding strategy for their markets?
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear what other folks on the call think too. But yeah, I think that's a great idea if you're telling people right away what to expect, right? So if it's a farmer's market, they're expecting veggies and meat and dairy and things like that and honey, right? But if it's a market, that broadens it out. So you might actually be missing out on customers who might come because they want to see those makers' products and the crafts and artwork and things like that. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I'd be curious too if other people have tried that or had suggestions about that also.
I'd just add that it might be something you could try surveying, like either through the DOT survey where really, big and bold, you're like, what do you think of this market? Here are 3 options, and your actual customers could help. That would leave out though the people who aren't there, who might be there if you had changed your names. You definitely have to take it all with some extra consideration.
For the Syracuse market, every Saturday morning, I make it a point of go to every single booth and see what we have for that day, and then blast it out before we open so people know what to expect when they come.
That's a great idea. And how do you get it out there? Just on Facebook or?
Right now, it's just Facebook.
Okay, that's a great.
But now that I know only 10% of the people are going to see our Facebook post, we might want to try another attack.
It's good to have multiple options. That's a great tip, though. Thanks, Bob.
So one thing I do is I do that Facebook blast like you do, but instead of using our market only Facebook page, I actually pull on the community Facebook pages that already have umpteen million followers. So that blast, and the admins are okay with it. Talk to them ahead of time, but that seems to be pretty helpful.
That's great. Yeah, good use of
partnership. Those already established pages with followers.
And she goes to each booth and takes a picture every week and posts new pictures because you know how produce is coming and sometimes we have this, sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
And we've gotten good feedback on that. I sell quilts, and so I pick one and I hold it up. And between last year and this year, I've sold at least a dozen from people that say, I saw that quilt on Facebook. That's why I'm here.
That's great customer feedback.
Yeah.
Great results from your marketing approach there. That's great.
Kind of seen the same thing by just using Facebook Live at the beginning of every market. We have a lot of people that'll show up and tell a vendor, oh, I'm here because I saw you had, whatever it is, and that they saw it on Facebook on the video. And so we don't necessarily do the pictures, but we try to do consistently, as soon as the market begins, start a Facebook Live video and do a tour of all the vendors.
Oh, that's a really great idea.
And if you're uncomfortable doing that yourself, there's someone out there who is comfortable, and you just got to find that person. And maybe it's a farmer, maybe it's a different farmer each week, maybe it's a customer even, right? Who could kind of be the guest presenter that week. Some of this is a little bit harder, like with COVID, but for the future, that kind of thing really does work. Different people see different things too. I sometimes miss an organization's just regular post on my feed, but I never miss the stuff that are in my groups.
Yeah.
I'm really invested in those like neighborhood groups.
Our Chamber of Commerce and Development Corporation are very faithful at sharing all of our farmers market posts for us as well.
We're starting to get questions about what can and can't be sold. And I downloaded and we give to all vendors, new and old, from the NDA Nebraska.gov, their document. And we've been using that as this is it. This is law. Is that appropriate?
Yes.
As far as everyone knows?
I would say the authority on that is going to be your local health department. The NDA is also the authority on what can and can't be sold. The other thing is that the cottage food law was passed. And so I'm not sure if you're familiar with that bill, but I guess that only expanded things outside of the market, that people could sell both. So that wouldn't have a huge impact here, but it talks about what needs a permit and what doesn't.
Okay, so I have that.
Yep. And if you have any like specific questions, I can give you, you can email me and I can connect with the Nebraska Department of Ag, or
Okay.
It's really hard. There's like nuances, and if you ever have questions on that, on specific things, Buy Fresh, Buy Local Nebraska is happy to help connect you with NDA. Then there could be any county level health requirements.
Probably just go ahead and get started with the second piece here. So we'll be talking about vendor recruitment and vendor retention for this second half. And again, please, please, please just speak up or put something in the chat if you want to add to the conversation. I know that with the vendor recruitment piece, it seems more like this is going to be set up for managers. And surely it is, you know, the managers who are recruiting vendors, but I really want to make sure this is relevant for vendors too. So keep in mind, if you are a vendor on this, in this training tonight, think about the considerations that you need to take too on that flip side, you know, how to make yourself available and attractive as a vendor to the market itself. So we'll be covering some strategies and a plan for managers. And again, for vendors, just try to take everything and make it into a consideration of what you should be thinking about at the same time. So what it all boils down to is this two-way street, right? What does the market have to offer the vendors? And then why does the market want the vendors? What do the vendors have to offer that market? So it really needs to be considered that way, you know, not to say it's all just about this, you know, business transaction, but truly, you know, this is the gist of it. You have to make sure it's working for everyone. So when we called folks in the spring, we got a lot of great feedback. And like we covered in that first section about marketing, there's a lot of word of mouth and social media that takes place, which is great to hear. And those are not only for marketing, but also for vendor recruitment. We know that a lot of managers are on their own, and in many cases, they're volunteers. And that kind of leads into that third point, that a lot of rural markets don't have vendor fees, or they have very low vendor fees. And that means there's often not much of a budget for the manager to take some certain steps that could expand the market in some ways that is hard to do when you're kind of counting on that volunteer labor. And there's also this ever-present need to recruit vendors and to expand the vendor reach. So that's some of what we heard from folks. And to begin with, we're really talking about the rural parts of Nebraska, which for us, we're pretty much considering the whole state except for Lincoln and Omaha for the most part. And so that's going to depend too on the scale. Some rural towns that have farmers markets have 200 people in them, and some have 2,000 or 20,000. We're kind of all saying that's still rural. And it means there are potentially fewer vendors out there than in Omaha or Lincoln. They're just kind of by default aren't as many people, right? And so of course there aren't as many customers, but that doesn't mean that it can't still work. These are just two challenges to consider. And then a lot of rural residents garden. And I know that farmers markets are much more than produce, much, much more. I actually think that's kind of a myth that is too bad that a lot of people grab onto, but it can make it tough for produce growers when every other person has a tomato plant or 20 tomato plants in their backyard. And then, as mentioned, the managers can be spread pretty thin, and it really needs to be a team effort. But on the other side, there are a lot of opportunities in rural areas. Certainly, and I'm from a small town. I'm from Bassett, so I certainly have seen this firsthand. But small towns are often really tight knit. They're really proud of their small town, and they have a lot of pride in the locally owned businesses. I can think of examples where, like the chamber in Bassett, they have Bassett Bucks, right? Where especially around the holidays, it's really encouraged to support local businesses, and there might be a coalition in place even to make sure those like participating businesses might have, you know, a giveaway or a raffle. So there's a lot of pride in the small locally owned businesses, and quality and workmanship are really valued as well. So these are all really important when you're thinking about a market where people are growing often, you know, food items by hand, maybe they're crafting things by hand. And I think the stories, sometimes even like the intergenerational relationships can be, if not stronger, maybe just as valued or more as in metro areas. And then because it's a small town and they're not inundated with a million events every night, each social event has more potential than any one event in a big city. It might be the only thing going on Saturday morning, and you got to use that to your advantage versus, you know, I'm in Lincoln, and on any given Saturday morning, even during the pandemic, there are dozens of things I could be doing. So why go to the market? There's going to be one the next day. There's going to be one on Thursday. So, but in a small town, you really want to take that to your advantage. So farmers markets are team efforts. And what I see as the four main like team players here would be the community, the customers, the manager, and the vendors. And when I say community, I'm thinking maybe it's the municipality allowing you to open up your street and maybe even close traffic down for a certain area. It's the advocates and champions in the community who may not be directly connected to the market, but they love it and they tell everyone about it. So you really need these kind of community champions, and you need the city to be supportive, and ideally other local businesses too, who could even see the market as competition in some ways. If you can merge those gaps and see how you can work together, that supportive community is huge. When I say buying customers, the reason I put that the extra descriptor there is because you can have some customers come and just spend a little bit of money here or there, or even just come and walk around and be a part of the atmosphere and the environment, and that can be really helpful. Like, numbers are important for the environment, and I am thinking, as always, like I'm kind of thinking non-pandemic times. But still, getting the bodies there is huge. But you also need to know that there's a good balance of folks who come to enjoy it, but also who open their wallets and really make substantial purchases to make it all worth it. Obviously the manager, and then reliable vendors you can count on to be there every week when they say they'll be, to give you a heads up if they can't for some reason. And it's nice when they can be diverse, because especially until you know what people are going to spend money on, you want to offer a really good variety of products. So you can see this manager, I love how she's got the Buy Fresh, Buy Local food guide. That was a total coincidence. And so she knows that she's part of a supportive community. She sees that her vendors are diverse. You know, they're following the guidelines for the pandemic on spacing. So she knows everyone's kind of on the same page moving forward. So I see this as a really good team effort. So the 5 steps to really focus on a good recruitment strategy as a manager are target, analyze, act, reach out, and integrate. And I'll get into what each of those really means. But to start with, the target is who you want to recruit. Who do you want to be at your market? What are you trying to accomplish? So when you're thinking about what you're trying to accomplish, this can be nice to really get a good strategic plan. Is what you want for vendors or for customers to come and pretty much buy everything they're going to eat that week? So do you want that diverse of a makeup of vendors where you have meat and dairy and produce and bread, all of those things? Or do you want it to be a really green market where you can emphasize that your vendors don't maybe use chemicals of any kind, right? Just one, you know, kind of more extreme example, but you want to set yourself up for what are you really trying to accomplish. You don't want just anyone to come in. And so the real why is, what will your customers buy? And I think it was Ben who touched on that in the first piece. You know, you need a product, you need a place to sell it. You really need to make sure you're reaching a customer need, that you're meeting that need. And so again, back to those, you know, DOT surveys, just talking to customers, seeing what people will spend their money on is huge in order for you to really get a plan in place. So this is me wearing my mask. I'm at the market. You can assume what I'm going to spend money on. And if I was braver, I would ask you to guess what I'm going to spend money on. But that would really be like asking a lot of people who don't know me. And it would be probably pretty funny. But what I really want to try to say with this picture of me and these diverse vendors is that you don't know what people want. You don't know me, especially you don't know me in a mask, right? Like we're not talking to each other as much right now. We don't want to make too many assumptions. And so we want to really find out what people will spend money on before we say, oh no, we don't sell donut holes at this market. Well, what if I will drop 50 bucks on donut holes every Saturday if we had them at the market? And what if all my friends would too? Because we're in like a donut hole club. Like we just love them. We spend all of our money like on sugary treats. You don't know. And so don't start making assumptions and plan in the short term as like a response. You know, you want to have more of a long-term strategy in place. So shout out to York, because this FFA chapter here is a York local chapter where they produce a ton of veggies in their greenhouse program. So I bring this up because you might be missing out on whole individuals and groups in your community that could be awesome vendors. If they only knew, they would be welcome and accepted, and that you might want them to try out vending at the market. So think about folks who haven't vended in the past and approaching them. And then I have this beadwork on the right, and I wanted to say actually exactly where that was from. Let's see, so that is from the Santee Sioux Nation Art Show and Community Market a couple years ago. And that's a market that the center helped put on. So maybe you don't want beadwork if you're really focusing on a produce-centric market. But if there are people who will buy, you know, handmade jewelry, then you might want to include that. So just a couple things to think about there with strategy. So once you know who you want to bring on, you want to think about what's stopping those people from participating and what's stopping you from reaching them. And we addressed a little bit in the rural challenges slide, there might just be a lack of vendors out there. It's true, there might not be that many people to pull from, and that's why you have to be creative and think about FFA clubs and think about the local quilt guild and think about the donut hole maker who might want to start renting commercial kitchen space. So be creative. There might be, for example, a lot of hobbyist gardeners who grow, you know, tomatoes in their backyard and can sell 5 to 10 pounds a week for 6 weeks. But if you really want an awesome tomato grower at your market, you might need to help find opportunities to take some production classes for the backyard and hobby growers to scale up to grow 20 pounds of tomatoes every week for 12 weeks. And so keeping some of those things in mind, like barriers might exist, but what can you do to help overcome them? And then for the vendors on the call to think about, oh, wow, I might do this one thing just a little bit, but if I could just double my season, I might be more, more attractive as a vendor. Concern regarding rules and regulations is definitely something that can be a barrier if people are like, oh yeah, but they're really strict there, or but they don't have any rules, people just kind of show up, or I don't even know who the manager is. Those types of things can really put like a wrench in progress. The perception and awareness and timing, that all has to do with consistency. If people don't know when your market is because you don't have great signage or because none of the vendors, promote it themselves, that can be tough. If the community isn't supportive, that can be tough. And just straight up, if the timing doesn't work for vendors and customers, that's a huge barrier. you know, if you choose to hold your market during a time of day or a day of the week where it's just not ideal, that's an easy problem to solve, really. So our next little piece is acting. And by act, I really mean what we've learned so far, how to plan to reach out to vendors, how to get a good strategy in mind. And I highlighted the put together a simple handout because I just think it's such an easy thing that anyone could do pretty simply. And what you're doing by creating a handout as a manager is you're marketing your market. You're saying, what's great about what we do? And if you ask yourself that question and you're like, oh, I don't know. I mean, maybe the next town does it better, or I don't know, like we don't do anything right, or we just do so many things right, I'm not sure how to narrow it down, right? That it just doesn't matter. You're doing something right. There is something about what you have that's unique to you and has potential. So it could be as simple as the market has grown every year for the past 5 years. It could have grown by a small amount. It could have gone from 4 vendors to 6 vendors, but that's still growth. That's sticking around in hard times. That's, you know, consistency. You could say, you know, we're always under the oak trees. Like we have a great location. We have a shady spot. We have a, you know, beautiful space for a market. Just think about a few things that could describe your market. You know, maybe it's a welcoming environment, you know, like everyone is welcome at our market. So just put together a simple handout, some bullet points, you know, and start getting that out to folks. The support would be like those production classes that I mentioned. If you have vendors who you think could really be like premium vendors, how can you help them get there? And it doesn't mean you have to teach the class, but it might mean trying to do a little brainstorming with them, bringing in some support, like from the Nebraska Department of Ag, like we were talking about in the break, bringing in a health inspector, that kind of thing. And then consider changes, but don't jump to change everything right away. You want to be seen as a market that is stable and makes, you know, progressive changes as needed, but doesn't just scratch everything and start over all the time. So get your strategy together, and then you can really reach out to the vendors. And no manager should think that they have to do this themselves. I think even if they're a volunteer manager, there will always be vendors that want to step up and help. There will always be those community advocates or champions or those partner organizations we talked about in the first presentation who can help. And we'll go through a few like specific recruitment strategies, like certain tips, but just to kind of get everyone in the theory of it, some of those simple things are just stepping back and asking yourself, what are we doing right? And how can we tell that story to the vendors? So they want to join our team. They want to grow our, you know, our market family. That elevator speech along with the handout is a really nice thing that we should all probably be able to say about whether it's our market, our farm business, the organization we might work for, our family, you know, whatever type of entity it is. It's kind of a nice little exercise to step back and come up with a 60-second elevator speech about what you do, why you do it, you know? So that can be one simple thing to really get your priorities in line. If folks don't have an application yet, because some small markets don't, get one. And it can be very simple. But as you approach vendors, it's a nice way to say, you know what, I've got last year's application right here. Check it out. See if you've got any questions about our rules. You know, it can be just an easy way to show legitimacy and to show that you've maybe had enough experience that, yeah, you're right. Some of those rules address things that we had problems with before, and we took care of them. We have these rules now. Here you go. And so for maybe people who don't have much of an application or want to just think about some of the basic things you want to have on that, Here would be just half a dozen bullet points of what to include on that form. You want to make sure you know how to reach them and how they can reach you. Any information about fees you want to include. Of course, you want to know what they're selling, because if you turn out 20 applications and 15 people turn an application in and they all want to sell quilts, maybe you can't have 15 quilt vendors at a small town market. It's just probably bad for everyone's sales. It's okay to have some amount of duplication of product, but there's really a limit to that. And that goes across the board, you know, produce, meat. It's great to have choices, but at some point you kind of flood the market. And then rules and regulations should be included in your application form, because farmers and other vendors are going to want to know what they're getting into, you know, when they apply. You're going to want to make sure you get this signed and returned. And then any other forms that are required, and this is where you might get some advice on from whether it's a local organization that is well versed in this, or the Department of Ag, or us, just to make sure you're not missing something here. So once you get your new vendors on board, and this will lead into our retention piece of this, but you want to integrate them into the market so it's an ongoing relationship that you have with vendors. You want everyone to feel welcome. This picture is a little chili cook-off, right? So whether it's a cook-off or just a potluck, that's one really casual way that you can gather in non-pandemic times and maybe leave business at home and bring family in to the event. And like inevitably you're going to talk about, you know, those certain customers or certain, you know, stormy days throughout the market. Like you'll talk about work, but you'll also really just build that relationship piece of things. And that can be a time to plan maybe a more formal meeting where you will talk about change for next year. Hey, why are the fees going up? Hey, what are we going to do to get more, you know, events? It can be a place where you start planning for a more formal relationship. But the just that weekly interaction is probably the best thing that managers can do. And I know that some of the folks on this call tonight are already doing that. You know, every week walking around saying, hey, how are you this week? Thanks for coming. You know, how were your sales last week? Everything going okay? Just that weekly check-in, even if it's very brief, can really help a new vendor feel welcome. So there's a ton of info on this, but I'll just stop here for a minute. And if you want to kind of read through those, they're just some thoughts, some experience that managers have shared with us on what they might do. I would say a couple standouts for me are the ones that involve a partner, a community partner. That could be extension, like your local extension office. It could be a library, a feed store, a gas station that everyone gets their coffee at in the morning. Think about what can the, you know, small town proud businesses and organizations in town do to help you, and helping you helps them, because it just draws more of that community pride and helps people want to be more involved. It's definitely like a stepping stone. Another interesting one from this list is toward the bottom. There is the consider consignment sales or one-off resells. And I thought this was an interesting one. I found this in, I think, just another toolkit that a similar organization put out. This would be like, for example, Colorado peaches. You know, if in your market rules and regs, you say, you know, every product has to be locally grown and this or that, but it is understood and very transparent that, you know, 2 times a year, the market under everyone's, you know, agreement brings some kind of stand-in that's maybe non-local. Again, the transparency is there. That could maybe draw in a big crowd, and then everyone else, their products might really benefit from those sales. You wouldn't want to bring competition in, if you had local peach growers. But just some things like that would be good to think about. Just take advantage of the other organizations that want to help you, truly. And so again, on the flip side of things, as a vendor, I hope that some of what I covered got you thinking too about some of the things you can do, or some of the things you can consider in a market when you're maybe looking for more markets. Do you have a supportive community there? Do they have really clear rules? Do you think they'll be enforced, fairly? Have you talked to other vendors? What do they think? What stands out about you as a vendor? Do you have a really unique product? Are you a really good communicator? Do you, do you consider yourself someone who would be able to step up into a leadership role if the board was looking for vendor input? Well, I love Sadie's example. Yes. So Sadie says they allow the Lions Club to sell their Colorado peaches since it's a fundraiser. So things like that are huge. You can also, in the application slide, I haven't been looking at my slide notes because I'm just having too much fun talking. But I remember I wanted to bring up also, when you have other organizations sit in at the market and participate, you also want to kind of vet them a little bit. So the Lions Club might be a great booth to bring in one weekend. You might want to think about, I think the Nebraska City Market brings in like the local library, and they participated in kind of a hot dog sort of event where maybe it was a reading thing and a hot dog thing. I feel like now I'm really misrepresenting them, and that's not what they did. But just for example, think about those other booths that can generate some excitement and some sales. Okay. I somehow, there we go. Couldn't get to the next slide. So quick recap: target who you're looking for, why you're looking for them, analyze what's holding the vendors back and what's keeping you from finding the vendors. Act is build your strategy. Reach out is actually get that strategy out there and find the vendors and talk to them and bring them in. Then once they're in, how to get people to really feel at home. So I know it's 7:44, but don't worry, this next section is shorter. If anyone's got questions though, or anything to add, such as Sadie, I strongly encourage you to do so. And so once folks are in, how can you get people to stay for multiple years? How can you get them to be the core vendors? Because we know that in every market, there's some vendor that you think about, when are they going to start coming? When's their corn going to be ready? Like, are the donut hole, vendors here this week? You got to have those core folks. And when it changes every year, it's hard to really get that, that flowing, right? So cultivate community, govern together, manage your money in a transparent way, work on ways to promote vendor education, and nurture and grow the market together. So the cultivate piece is all about creating a culture that is welcoming to vendors. We really think about the customer side of things a lot, as I think as individual vendors, that's what we have in mind, and the market too. But we can't forget about the vendors as really being a big part of that. Of course, they come for income. That is generally the #1 reason that vendors report their first interest in the market, but the social aspect is right up there. So the governing together is important because we hear from managers and we hear from vendors that vendors are happier when they know their opinion counts for something. They know that they have a voice in decision making. But I have to say, this is a really fine line, and the best time that to really take in feedback and make potential changes with it is not mid-market. It's going to be after the market. Post-season is a great time to really make changes. During the season, you really want to be able to have your your rules handy. You want to make sure everyone understands where we're at right now and be able to fairly and consistently, implement and enforce those rules. But it's very important that farmers know if they have valid concerns that they will be addressed. But it is kind of a timing thing, and the manager really needs to be, the leader in the season. But having those rules can make conflict management so much less personal. And that's really important, I think, especially in small towns. We all know each other, and for better or worse, we know, every detail. And so having something to draw back on and say, no, this is what we agreed to. This is what you agreed to coming in. We got to just stick to that. It results in happier vendors and happier managers. So we want to make sure communication is clear. People aren't being, left out of important details, important changes that the market might be considering. Really making sure you're not leaving anyone in the dark is very important, and that vendors just know they can ask questions. They know it's a friendly atmosphere. They can go over to the market booth, call you after the market, have those chats, that it's really open communication is all about that governing together. The money part comes in is really, I love to say first that you have to have money to manage in order to manage money well. And so I'm definitely like a fee proponent, even if those fees are small. And I don't mean to say there's a one size fits all solution, or that there need to be, like a large amount of fees, but I think that a little bit from each vendor can go a long way, and it really helps the vendors have some skin in the game. And then it allows the manager to do a lot more and bring in more vendors and more promotion strategies. So once you have money, you want to make sure you're being upfront with how it's being spent. If people are going to pay a fee to participate in the market, they want to know where those fees will be spent, and that's totally valid. So just to highlight the small markets, and I know there's some hesitation sometimes to have those fees, at least consider it. You don't have to do it, but think about what, a certain dollar amount times number of vendors could do for you. And think about maybe considering giving a first-time vendor, a half off stall one week. Or think about if you want to have more produce growers, you have every right, as like a group or, decision-making team, to charge produce growers, for example, $100 a season, but your prepared food vendors, it's $150. Like, it doesn't have to be the same for everyone, but you have to be able to explain and be transparent about why the structure exists. So it's really that communication is always the key when you're thinking about promoting the market. And a lot of this was covered in the marketing, but I wanted just to emphasize that no one person has to do it all. No one person can do it all. And you certainly can't do it all the time. So getting those winter meetings planned, having those conversations throughout the season, so the vendors and the managers are on the same page. You can set some goals and work at it together. I really like how tomorrow we'll be going into some more details on some of the programs to reach new demographics. And this would be like the SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as food bucks, as food stamps, and WIC and the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. I know a lot of folks participate in that program, but communities and demographics are always changing, around the state, around the country and world, and we need to be able to adapt to grow community and to grow customers and relationships, and make sure that we are not leaving, folks out. And so think about how your community is changing and how you can just ensure access for everyone. And sometimes that is as simple as the environment, as simple as, the smile, the saying hello, the signage. If you're in an area where multiple languages could help bring more people out, don't hesitate to reach out, and we can connect you with folks who can help with, translation if we're not able to do that ourselves. But that can be a key as well. So just kind of wrapping up here, but other ways to promote this could really focus on what we've learned this year with COVID and how to, consider some different strategies in marketing, whether it's online orders, curbside pickup. If vendors know that the manager is taking steps to be proactive, to be not only just responsive to what happens, but to really have some plans in place, prior, that can really help vendors want to stick around and say, wow, you were really on that. Like, you got that online ordering figured out, or, thanks for working with me on that, or thanks for connecting me to this person who helped me. That just being proactive makes vendors think that they're being taken care of, and then they want to give back as well. So that two-way street is always there. So work together, as a team. Bring folks like us in when you're able to. Try to form coalitions with, area markets. So you're not competing, you're collaborating. That might be on day of the week, making sure if your market starts at 8 on Saturday, maybe the next town over should be, 9 on Sunday. How can you help so vendors can be in both markets, so more customers can be happy, and so you just have that environment too where you're not competing, that you are collaborating. So been through our contact information in the chat there, and certainly, be in touch with any of us, to follow up.